Stop using church intimidation, control and manipulation. Jezebel and all them spirits fall back, not trying to hear it. Go with Jesus, walk in peace. On your pew can sit that beast that we're fighting in the world. I'm that JC Supergirl, Jesus Christ, belt of truth, arm of God, I'm slaying you. Power of the word, two-edged sword. MC Heaven rocks for her Lord. Thought they crept in unaware, didn't see the gatekeeper standing right there, not getting down with your tactics, undoctrinal practice.
Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom and Barakatah. Welcome again to the Crystal Jones Show. It's the show that's all about life's balance. I'm your talk show host, Crystal Jones. We just want to wish you peace and blessings on this wonderful Sabbath. We want to greet you in the name of Ahaya, Bahashem, Yeshaya, Wawarak. And you can catch me every Saturday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. on bronxnet.org, on your cable channel 951 and 2137. I'm on the Inspire channel. So you could do that. Also, you can go to my YouTube channel. Join the YouTube channel, share and like my videos. I'm on the handle of the Crystal Jones TV show on YouTube. Also, you could check me out on Instagram. I have inspirational Bible verses on there, and also you could check me out at HebrewConnect.tv. All right. Always you can write me at the Crystal Jones Show at gmail.com as well. Okay. So today we are going to read a portion of scripture from the book of 2nd Ezra. Now we have Ezra in the King James Version Bible that we have today. But like I told you, remember when King James put the Bible together with his scholars and whatnot, the apocryphal books were in there, but they were removed, right? So 2nd Ezra is not in the King James Version that we know, the 66 books, but there are more books than that. So 2nd Ezra is in the apocryphal books. You could go online, download it, or you can go to probably scriptural texts, sacred texts, like that. You can get yourself an apocrypha Bible as well. All right. So 2nd Ezra, this one is the prophet Ezra, and he's talking to the Lord, and the Lord is describing to him about when he made the earth and, what's going on in the earth now. All right, what he was letting him know the future, because remember the prophets are, seeing different things, and the Lord has talked to them down through the ages and let them know what was going on then and what would be coming in the future. So in 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, in the first verse says, "And he said unto me in the beginning," this is the Lord telling Ezra, "when the earth was made, before the borders of the world stood or ever the winds blew." So God is saying in the very beginning, when the earth was made, the beginning of what time? Because God operates in and out of time. He's eternal. So there is no time with him, but he operates in both, in eternity and in time with us as well. So he says, before it thundered and lightened, or ever the foundations of paradise were laid, before the fair flowers were seen. Because remember, in the beginning, when it tells you about when God made, the heavenlies and things like that. So he's talking about even then, when the heavenly beings and things like that were made, right? So he said, before the fair flowers were seen, or even the movable powers were established, before the innumerable multitude of angels were gathered together. He's talking about the very beginning, before he created different spirits and beings and things like that. Or ever the heights of the air were lifted up, before the measures of the firmament were named, or ever the chimneys in Zion were hot. And ere the present years were sought out, and or ever the inventions of them that now sin were turned. So remember, in the beginning, the Lord had created all these things, and because of Adam and Eve's sin, the earth started to just, spiral out of control, from different things to Noah's, to the flood with Noah and all of that kind of stuff, because of the Nephilim, the giants, and the angels started falling from heaven, and all kind of crazy stuff went on in the earth. So God is talking about before the very chaos of anything of creation started, before they were sealed that have gathered faith for a treasure. He says, then did I consider these things, and they all were made through me alone. So God knows the beginning from the end. He knew man was going to fall. He knew who we would be, you and I today. He spoke us into being. He spoke our spirit into existence long before we were even created in the womb. He told, I believe it was the prophet Jeremiah, he said, before I formed you in the belly of your mother, I knew you. He knew who you were. He knew who Jeremiah was. He called him a prophet back then. Then answered I and said, what shall be? I'm sorry, in the 6th verse, it said, then did I consider these things, and they all were made through me alone. The Lord is saying, I made all these things, and through none other. By me also they shall be ended, and by no other. So the Lord knew, he saw that man was going to mess things up, and he was going to have to bring an end to life as we know it in order to bring back his original purpose for us. He saw the beginning from the end. So he says, then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? What's going to happen when the times break up, when this part of eternity ends and we go into the next part of eternity? How is this going to be? So when shall be the end of the first, which is the one we're in now, and the beginning of it that followeth, right? Because we're in the end times now. So the world as we know it eventually is going to end, because Christ is going to come back to the earth, cleanse it out, and bring his people, which is us, the 12 tribes, back to Jerusalem, so that he can rule and reign, and we will bring the people back to the knowledge of the Lord as it was from the beginning. So this is what the Lord is telling Ezra. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Remember, if you go back a couple of teachings in this, this teaching that I'm doing on Esau and Jacob, the patriarchal history, right? When the twins were born, Esau was the oldest child. And when he came out, Jacob's hand grabbed his heel, right? So this is what God is revealing to Ezra, what that means. So Esau, he said, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Why? Because Esau is the end of the world. This world that we know now is going to end. That's why it's so much chaos and craziness going on. This is why it's like the wild, wild west, people shooting, killing, all kind of crazy stuff is going on, because it's got to spin out of control so that Christ will come back, because he said, except I come back, no flesh will be saved. So that's how bad it's going to get. So he said, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So the two worlds, remember when their mother was pregnant with them, with Esau and Jacob, right? Rebecca, she didn't know why they were struggling in the womb, because there were going to be two groups of people born, two nations of people born from these twins. One would rule first, which would have been, as we see it now, Esau he's the end of this world, because remember, he mixed in, he forsook his birthright, he left the Hebrew Israelite way to go to the way of the pagans and the Gentile nations. He mixed in with all of those nations, the European nations and all of that. But Jacob stayed with the Lord, you know, even though we had a battle, because some of our people left off and went to some of those different ways that we shouldn't have. But that's what happened. So Esau is the end of this world as we know it, and Jacob is going to be the beginning of the next, and it's not going to stop. It's not going to be that ends and then we wait a while. No, as he goes out, we're coming up, we're going in, because we were given his birthright. He gave it away, even though he didn't, it played out like that in the story. But from the beginning, God knew that Jacob, he said, Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated. Why did he hate Esau? He hated his ways. His ways were ungodly. So Jacob was the one that he loved, and we are Jacob's children. We are, as we discuss every week, we are the ones that are of the 12 tribes of Israel, right? So that's how that plays out. So that's what's happening now, is that world has to come to an end, and the world that Christ is going to rule and reign in is coming up. But it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a struggle, just like it was in Rebecca's womb. So don't look for it to get better. It's going to get worse, because you have a fight on your hands when that happens. Okay. So we're going to move on, and I'm going to give my commentary on gun control. Now, I want to know, what did y'all think was going to really happen? Did you really think that they were going to just remove the guns at this time and say, okay, nobody can have a gun? That's not going to happen. Okay. So I don't know what everybody's surprised at. Like I told you, both parties are just, it's the same nonsense really on both sides. Okay. Neither one is for our turn. They're not. They may have some people in there that do certain things to help us get certain things. But if you notice, nobody is trying to right the wrongs that they've, done to us. And they keep bringing other nations of people that'll go before us when we're the ones that built the country. They won't acknowledge that. They still use the prison system as a slave trade. That's pretty much what it is, because more than half the people really shouldn't even be there. So what is that, right? Okay, so like, really? So they're going to be afraid of who? Pretty much, when you've done people wrong, you're afraid. This is why their kids can get AR-15s or 16s or whatever at teenage ages, and you seeing them going and the things that they do, murdering people and carrying on like that. This is what they're used to. These are the same people that went into Africa and boarded us on boats. You understand what I'm saying? They made a trade with the other nations in Africa, because remember, though we hid in Africa, we were not actually African. We're Hebrew Israelites, the 12 tribes. All right. So they boarded us on these boats, raped us, did all kind of things to us, and have never righted that wrong at all. Now, some of their people maybe have done things to, try to help us or whatever. But as a nation, this nation has never repented fully for what they did to the 12 tribes of Israel. And they know it. When we arrived, it had the name of our tribes on the boats, tribe of Judah and all of that. The North American Indians and the Gadites. They're the tribe of Gad. I mean, come on. And they think that they're playing this game with little things that they do. Oh, okay, we'll give you a biscuit. Nah, it's not going to work like that. When Christ returns, He's going to set that in order too. They're not going to like what he has to say or what he does, because it's called judgment that is going to, it's falling on the nation now, and it's going to fall on all the nations that have come against us, because they didn't have to do us like that. Even though our people, some of our people have fallen from grace, they should have just told us, listen, you are the chosen ones, to bring order, restore order in the earth. And they should never treated us the way they did. So all of the nations, not just here, there are other nations that are going to pay for the things that they've done to all 12 tribes. Believe it. So the gun control thing, that's a joke. Like, of course, if you're afraid and you keep doing people wrong and stuff like that, you're gonna okay for your kids to have guns. And it doesn't matter that people are hurt, lose their lives and all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. They're just showing you who they are. They're showing you who they are on both sides. That's who they are. All right. So that's really a joke that people thought that they were really gonna, come on. Let's be for real, y'all. Let's stop acting like we don't know. Okay. Read between the lines. They don't care. All right. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to go to, sadly, our missing youth. We're having so many young women of color that are missing like crazy. Young girls that are missing, being sold into sex slavery and all kind of crazy things. All right. So get your kids, y'all. Get your kids. Get them together. Have talks with them. Stop letting them be too independent and all of that kind of stuff. No, you have got to look out for your kids. Don't just let them just go and, oh, well, she's big enough to do this or that. Yeah, and they're getting snatched off the street every day too. All right. So wake up and smell the coffee. Let's get together. We have to network together and make sure our children are safe. Prayer, yes, prayer, seeking God on it, definitely, but we have to act. After we get up off our knees and pray, we got to take some action. All right. So the first person that I have today missing is Jda Gaither. Okay, she's been missing since June 18th of 2022. All right, she's missing from Jamaica, New York, which is in Queens. She's a Black female. Her hair color is black. Her eye color is brown. She's about 5 feet, and her weight is about 115 pounds. All right. If you see this young lady, please, you know the number, 1-800-843-5678. All right. Or go to missingkids.org and let's get her back home. She's only 11 years old. 11 years old. I hope and pray that all is well. I really do. So let's get her back home to her family where she belongs and not with somebody that's trying to harm her. All right. The next person that we have is Jennifer Yarbrough. Okay. She's been missing November 27th of 2006. That's quite a few years ago. This young lady has been missing. Okay, she would now be 15 years old. She was missing from Pleasantville, New York. All right. She's a biracial female. She has brown hair, brown eye color. She's about 5'7", and she weighed at that time. She weighs about 240 pounds. But she's been missing for a while, since 2006. So if you see her, 1-800-843-5678 or missingkids.org. If you know anything about her, her missing, please, I'm sure her family would love to have her back home with them where she belongs. All right. Now, let's go to the next one, who is Tony Boyce. Tony Boyce has been missing since June 11th of 2022. All right. She's missing from Brooklyn, New York. All right. She's 17 years old. She's a Black female. Her hair color is normally black. Her eye color is brown. Her height is 5 feet 6 inches. She weighs about 130 pounds. All right. So please, if you see her, 1-800-843-5678, missingkids.org. Let's get her back home to her family again, where she belongs. All right. Now, the last person that we have today is Quiana Wright. All right. Quiana has been missing since June 8th of this year, 2022. Okay. She's missing from Buffalo, New York. She's 15 years old. She's a black female. She has brown hair color, brown eye color. Her height is 5'4", and she weighs about 145 pounds. Please, if you see Quiana Wright, 1-800-843-5678, missingkids.org. Please, 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 let's call the number or go to the site and let somebody know what's going on. All right. Now let's move on to our health and wellness segment. Again, we're into the natural products, all right, for shampoo. Another good one is the rice water. That rice water is really, a lot of people are saying that it's really helping their hair to grow. So that's something that you may want to try. Try the rice water. You could go online and look at, the videos that can show you how to make it, to your, liking, putting different things in that, you would like to be in your hair. All right, that you're comfortable with. So rice water, that's another one. Very, very good product. A lot of people are getting results. All right. So we're going to move on to our business tips on doing outdoor events. Okay, because we're here in the summer now, summer months. All right. How about a walk and talk? Will you invite people to come just walk and talk? Sometimes that's how you can make business plans, just walking and talking. Route, have a route or a path that a whole group of you want to go on, invite people. Let's go, let's do a walk and talk, and you could talk about different business ideas and things like that, how to help each other, do more with your business. Okay, so that's an idea too. Do a walk and talk. I think that would be different, right? So hey, doesn't hurt to try it, right? Okay, so we are now going to move on down to our credo, which is Shama Yasharala, Ahaya Alahaya Nawa, Ahaya Akkad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one in the book of Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear. That's what we need to do, is hear the word of the Lord. All right. So we are going to continue our teaching on Esau and Jacob. All right. We left off at Jasher last week, the 48th chapter, and we are at the 62nd verse of Jasher. Okay, where Joseph was interpreting the dream for the king. The king had dreamt a dream, and he made the mistake of calling all these sorcerer people and witchcraft people, and they didn't know what in the world they was talking about. But when Joseph interpreted the dream, the king knew that it had come from God. So his people had said to him, make sure that he knows what he's talking about, that you can seal all his words, that what he says is true. So at the 62nd verse in the 48th chapter of Jasher, which is also an apocryphal book, it says, and the king answered and said unto Joseph, who saith and who knoweth that thy words are correct? So this is the king asking Joseph. And he said unto the king, this shall be a sign for thee respecting all my words, that they are true, and that my advice is good for thee. Behold, thy wife sitteth this day. So now Joseph is giving him a prophecy for himself. He's letting him know, this is how you're going to know that this came from God, because there's no way that I would know this particular prophecy. Okay, so this particular prophecy, Joseph is telling him, behold, thy wife sitteth this day upon the stool of delivery. Your wife is pregnant and she's about to deliver, and she will bear thee a son, and thou wilt rejoice with him. You'll be happy because you haven't, she has this child. When thy child shall have gone forth from his mother's womb, your other child, your firstborn son, that has been born these 2 years back, shall die. In other words, you're going to be glad that this young boy is going to be born, but your other child, who was born about 2 years ago, he's going to die. And you will be comforted in the child that will be born unto you today. So even though you're going to lose one child, you're going to be glad that your wife is having the child she's having today, because your other child is going to die. Now, that's a deep prophecy for somebody that even, I can imagine how the king was feeling. So the 64th verse says, and Joseph finished speaking these words to the king. And Joseph bowed down to the king, and he went out. And when Joseph had gone out from the king's presence, those signs which Joseph had spoken to the king came to pass on that day. So the same day that Joseph told him that, okay, it happened. Now, I want to clear this up about how he bowed down to the king. We don't bow to anybody but God. But remember, Joseph was taken as a slave into slavery. So his bowing down could have meant he was bowing down to honor God before this king. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he was seeing this king as God, because he wasn't, because Joseph was still, even though he was enslaved, he was still dealing with the God of heaven and earth, the Most High. So I want to clear that up before people say, oh, well, y'all say y'all don't bow down to people. No, we don't. No, people are people and God is God. You bow to God. All right. Some of these other nations have people bowing down to certain people and stuff. No, we don't do that. You bow to God only. He is above all. The Bible tells us the Lord is high above all nations. The Lord is high above the heavens. He's high above the nations. He's above everything. So man is like this to him, right? So, all right. So now, and Joseph finished speaking these words to the king, and he bowed to the king. Like I said, you understand that. When Joseph had gone out from the king's presence, those signs which Joseph had spoken unto the king came to pass on that day. And the queen bare a son on that day, and the king heard the glad tidings about his son, and he rejoiced. And when the reporter had gone forth from the king's presence, the king's servants found the firstborn son of the king fallen dead upon the ground. So the same thing happened that day. I don't know, maybe the little boy was out playing or whatever. And there was great lamentation and noise in the king's house, and the king heard it. And he said, what is this noise and lamentation, crying, that I have heard in the house? And they told the king that his firstborn son had died. Then the king knew that all Joseph's words that he had spoken were correct. And the king was consoled for his son by the child that was born to him on that day, as Joseph had spoken. All right. So Joseph is confirming the word of the Lord. Okay. So the Lord confirmed his word through his servant Joseph, and it came to pass that day. Sometimes prophecies come to pass right away. Sometimes it takes years, decades, or whatever, but it will come to pass. Now let's go to Joshua, the 49th chapter. Okay. After these things, the king sent and assembled all his officers and servants, and all the princes and nobles belonging to the king, and they all came before the king. And the king said unto them, behold, you have seen and heard all the words of this Hebrew man, meaning Joseph, and all the signs which he declared would come to pass. And not any of his words have fallen to the ground. Like everything Joseph told us been on point. Nothing failed, none of that. it came to pass. You know that he has given a proper interpretation of the dream, and it will surely come to pass. So now the king is remembering the dreams that he told Joseph he had. Joseph told him there's going to be a famine. There's going to be 7 years of plenteous, and then 7 years of lack, right? Like what we're going through now. Isn't that strange? Okay, so now therefore take counsel and know what you will do and how the land will be delivered from the famine. Seek now and see whether the light can be found, in whose heart there's wisdom and knowledge, and I will appoint him over the land. So the king is saying, listen, I want somebody like that, like Joseph put over the land, so that these years of plenteous, we can gather the food and all of that. So in the years of lack, we'll still have food, right? So in the 5th verse, it says, for you have heard what the Hebrew man has advised concerning this, to save the land therewith from the famine. And I know that the land will not be delivered from the famine, but with the advice of the Hebrew man, him that advised me. Joseph was a Hebrew. Again, he's a Hebrew. All right. Now, and they all answered the king and said, the counsel which the Hebrew has given concerning this is good. Now, therefore, our Lord and King, behold, the whole land is in thy hand. Do that which seemeth good in thy sight. Him whom thou choosest, okay, and whom thou in thy wisdom, okay, knowest to be wise and capable of delivering the land with his wisdom, him shall the king appoint to be under him over the land. And the king said to all the officers, I have thought that since God has made known to the Hebrew man all that he has spoken, there is none so discreet and wise in the whole land as he is. So God made these Egyptian people listen to a Hebrew. He made them listen to a Hebrew Israelite. Okay, they're all black people, but they're from another land. All right, but they put a Hebrew Israelite over. They were getting ready to put a Hebrew Israelite over them because why? God had dealt with our people, and this is how the world didn't starve, because God used Joseph to gather the food and whatnot, so that the people everybody wouldn't die during the famine, right? So him whom thou choosest and whom thou in thy wisdom knowest to be wise, right? And so the king said to all the officers, verse 8, I have thought that since God has made known to the Hebrew man all that he has spoken, there is none so discreet and wise in the whole land as he is. If it seem good in your sight, I will place him over the land, for he will save the land with his wisdom. And all the officers answered the king and said, but surely it is written in the laws of Egypt, and it should not be violated, that no man shall reign over Egypt, nor be the second to the king, but one who has knowledge in all the languages of the sons of men. Right? So the officers of the king said, he can't rule over us unless he knows all the languages of the world. Isn't that crazy? Now y'all about to die, but you telling the king, you can't put nobody over us unless they know all the languages. What? So now therefore, our Lord and King, behold, this Hebrew man can only speak the Hebrew language. And how then can he be over us, the second under government, a man who not even knoweth, who doesn't even know our language? Now we pray thee, send for him and let him come before thee, and prove him in all things, and do as thou see fit. Like, he's supposed to know all the languages, but bring him over here, and then you do as you see fit. Let's check him out. And the king said, it shall be done tomorrow, and the thing that you have spoken is good. And all the officers came on that day before the king. Now, see, God is not stumped by this. He knows Joseph only maybe knows Hebrew. Joseph probably knew several languages because Jacob probably taught him some of the other languages. But anyway, sometimes people think they know you, but they don't, right? So God knows this. So he's not stumped by them saying this. He's like, okay, y'all want him to know all the languages? Good. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to send my angel down and teach it to him. Y'all ain't stopping y'all ain't stopping nothing, right? So the king said it will be done tomorrow, right? And the thing that you have spoken is good. And all the officers came on that day before the king. And on that night, the Lord sent one of his ministering angels, and he came into the land of Egypt unto Joseph. So God sent an angel to Joseph. Sometime God will send an angel directly to you. Remember, angels can come in all forms. They can come in the form of an animal. They could come in the form of a person. Whatever God needs done, he's going to do it. And sometimes he'll send a heavenly being, a heavenly angel to work the thing out. So the Lord sent one of his ministering angels, and he came into the land of Egypt unto Joseph. And the angel of the Lord stood over Joseph. He stood over him. And behold, Joseph was lying in the bed at night in his master's house in the dungeon. Now, Joseph had interpreted these dreams, and they were still putting him in a dungeon. What's wrong with these people? For his master had put him back into the dungeon on account of his wife. Remember, his wife had lied and said that Joseph tried to rape her. So he still believed in that foolishness, right? Okay. And the angel aroused him from his sleep, and Joseph rose up and stood upon his legs. And behold, the angel of the Lord was standing opposite to him. And the angel of the Lord spoke with Joseph, and he taught him all the languages of man in that night. So he had to teach him the 70, remember, and with the Tower of Babel, when the Lord split the languages because they were trying to make it up to heaven and worship idols. But the Lord sent down 70 angels to split the language on the earth. Okay, so that's how we have all these different languages. It first started with the 70 angels, and from there you have other languages. Today you have, in Africa alone, I think has like 3,000 languages, right? So the angel of the Lord spoke with Joseph, and he taught him all the languages of man in that night. All the languages. Okay, so there's nothing too hard for God. He could teach him all the languages in one night. Boy, I would like to learn that. Woo. And he called his name Jehoshaphat, right? And the angel of the Lord went from him. And Joseph returned and lay upon his bed. And Joseph was astonished at the vision which he saw. So he was shocked, like, this angel came and he showed me the languages. Wow, right? So, and it came to pass in the morning that the king sent for all his officers and servants. And they all came and sat before the king, and the king ordered Joseph to be brought. And the king's servants went and brought Joseph before Pharaoh. And the king came forth and ascended the steps of the throne. And Joseph spoke unto the king in all the languages. He was like, listen, I'm dropping it today. I know all the languages. I got it. Y'all said I needed to know them languages. Guess what? There's nothing too hard for God. The God that I serve, he sent somebody. He sent his angel to show me those languages. So here it is, right? So Joseph spoke unto the king in all languages. And Joseph went up to him and spoke unto the king until he arrived before the king in the 70th step. Remember, go back and look at how the king used to, how he would talk to people. He would only come to a certain step. So Joseph made it to the 70th step, and he sat before the king. And the king greatly rejoiced on account of Joseph, and all the king's officers rejoiced greatly with the king when they heard all the words of Joseph. And the thing seemed good in the sight of the king and the officers to appoint Joseph to be second to the king over the whole land of Egypt. The whole land of Egypt. All right. The Lord may make you, you may be in jail somewhere, and the Lord will make you over that whole jail. That's what he was doing with Joseph, the whole jail, because you may be the one that will bring those people to righteousness, to repentance, to a reasonable mind. God will use you to turn everything around. I don't care where you at, he can do it, right? Now thou didst give me a counsel to appoint a wise man over the land of Egypt, right? So I'm okay. He says, and the king spoke to Joseph, saying, now thou didst give me counsel to appoint a wise man over the land of Egypt, in order with his wisdom to save the land from famine. Now therefore, since God has made all this known to thee, and all the words which thou hast spoken, there is not throughout the land a discreet and wise man like unto thee. They had to acknowledge that these people, y'all don't, there's nobody in the land like you, Joseph. It's not. When God is dealing with you, whoever comes against you or whatever, they ain't gonna be able to prosper. It's not gonna happen, because God's will be done. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And thy name no more shall be called Joseph, but Zaphnath Paneah shall be thy name. And some of these people called, the Egyptologists call him Imhotep, right? But in the Bible, it says, Zaphnath Paneah shall be thy name. Thou shalt be second to me. And according to thy word shall be all the affairs of my government. And at thy word shall my people go out and come in. In other words, you are the prince over Egypt. You are the prime minister of Egypt. You're second in command to the king. You are over this land. Also from under thy hand shall my servants and officers receive their salary. You in charge of the payroll, brother man. Yeah, you, the one who they look down upon, threw you in jail. You are over the payroll. All right. And my servants and officers shall receive their salary. You're the one, from under your hand, they're going to receive their salary, which is given to them monthly. And to thee shall all the people of the land bow down. He said they going to bow down to you, brother. Only in my throne will I be greater than you, because this man is the king. So Joseph is made second to the king in a land that he's not even a part of. Joseph is a Hebrew. He's from the 12 he's the of the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. And the king took off his ring from his hand and put it upon the hand of Joseph. He even took his ring, the king took his ring off his hand, put it on Joseph's hand. That's what they would do as a sign it, uh, making a covenant agreement. They would put a ring for, to make it, to seal a deal. And the king took off his ring from his hand and put it upon the hand of Joseph. And the king dressed Joseph in a princely garment. And he put a golden crown upon his head. And he put a golden chain upon his neck. And the king commanded his servants, and they made him ride in the second chariot. Ooh, he had a chariot belonging to the king that went opposite to the king's chariot. And he caused him to ride upon a great and strong horse from the king's horses, and to be conducted through the streets of the land of Egypt. A processional, baby, a processional. The Lord set it up. Joseph had on these garments and all of that. But ain't gonna be nothing like the garments we gonna have on when we get to that New Jerusalem, baby. We gonna be looking tight, okay? So, and the king commanded that all those that played upon timbrels, the tambourine, the harps, and other musical instruments should go forth with Joseph. 1,000 timbrels, 1,000 Mecholeth, and 1,000 Nebelim went after him. and 5,000 men with drawn swords glittering in their hands, and they went marching and playing before Joseph like a parade. And 20,000 of the great men of the king, girt with girdles of skin covered with gold, marched at the right hand of Joseph, and 20,000 at his left, and all the women and damsels went upon the roofs or stood in the streets, playing and rejoicing at Joseph, and gazed at the appearance of Joseph and at his beauty. He was a fine brother. He went from the pit to the palace, from the prison to prosperity. So ain't nothing too hard for God, right? So, and the king's people went before him and behind him, perfuming the road with frankincense and with cassia and with all sorts of fine perfume, and scattered myrrh and aloes along the road. They was throwing things in the road. And 20 men proclaimed these words before him throughout the land in a loud voice. Do you see this man whom the king has chosen to be his second? All the affairs of government shall be regulated by him. He was in government, a just government. He was just. He was over the government. All right. He was going by the laws of the Lord, because when Joseph ruled, there wasn't all that witchcraft and stuff going on. He was like, nah, we ain't doing that. We gonna serve the Most High, right? So uh the government shall be regulated by him, and he that transgresses his orders, or that does not bow down before him to the ground, shall die, for he rebels against the king and his second. So Joseph was in charge of everything, right? And when the heralds, the announcers, had ceased proclaiming, all the people of Egypt bowed down to the ground before Joseph and said, may the king live. Also may his second live. And all the inhabitants of Egypt bowed down along the road. Now remember, the Egyptians are a Gentile nation, so they do that kind of thing. And when the heralds approached them, they bowed down, and they rejoiced with all sorts of timbrels, Mechol and Nebel, before Joseph. And Joseph upon his horse lifted up his eyes to heaven. Now they doing all this bowing down, but Joseph know the deal. He know, don't think about all the stuff that they doing. Lift your eyes up, because God is the one that caused it to happen, not you. He worked through you because you was in the pit. Okay? So Joseph upon his horse knew enough to lift up his eyes to heaven and called out and said, he raiseth the poor man from the dust. He lifteth up the needy from the dunghill. O Lord of hosts, happy is the man who trusteth in thee. He had enough sense to look to heaven and call out and say, oh Lord, you raise the poor man from the dust. You lift up the needy from the dunghill. He was in the dunghill. When you in them jails, please, that's the dunghill. Are you kidding? Oh Lord of hosts, happy is the man who trusts in thee. But even if you in jail somewhere, you can trust God to bring you out. But you got to be right in your heart, really wanting to do the will of the Lord, right? Or at least asking God to change you, change your heart, your mind, your ways, and all of that. And Joseph passed throughout the land of Egypt with Pharaoh's servants and officers, and they showed him the whole land of Egypt. Okay, and all the king's treasures. So he got to see the whole land, the treasures, the gold, the silver, all that kind of stuff, whatever riches those people had. And Joseph returned and came on that day before Pharaoh. And the king gave unto Joseph a possession in the land of Egypt. Now that possession that he gave him is still ours. So when we go back to the land, we'll have possession of that where he gave us, which I believe was Goshen. All right, a possession of fields and vineyards. And the king gave unto Joseph 3,000 talents of silver and 1,000 talents of gold and onyx stones and bdellium and many gifts. So Joseph was given a lot of wealth and stuff, when he came in as second to the king. And on the next day, the king commanded all the people of Egypt to bring unto Joseph offerings and gifts. He commanded the people, bring gifts, bring offerings, and that he that violated the command of the king would die. If you didn't do this, you would die. And they made a high place in the street of the city, and they spread out garments there. And whoever brought anything to Joseph put it into the high place. And all the people of Egypt cast something into the high place. One man a golden earring, and the other rings and earrings and different vessels of gold and silver work and onyx stones and bdellium did he cast upon the high place. Everyone gave something of what he possessed. And Joseph took all these and placed them in his treasuries, and all the officers and nobles belonging to the king exalted Joseph, and they gave him many gifts, seeing that the king had chosen him to be his second. And the king sent to Potiphar, the son of Ahiram, priest of On, and he took his young daughter Osnath and gave her unto Joseph for a wife. So see, Joseph had an Egyptian wife because why? He was enslaved. He was under natural circumstances, he would have had a Hebrew woman, but he was enslaved, and this was the will of God to save many people alive. So his kids would be what he is. They're Hebrew, but they have Egyptian in them too. So that's where that union was made, where he had this woman Osnath was his wife, and the damsel was very comely. She's very a pretty woman. She was a virgin, one whom man had not known, and Joseph took her for a wife. And the king said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and beside thee none shall dare to lift up his hand or his foot to regulate my people throughout the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. And Joseph went out from before the king, and he became the king's second in Egypt. And the king gave Joseph 100 servants to attend him in his house. Can you imagine having all those people to attend to you? I need this. I'm going here. I need that, you know. And Joseph also sent and purchased many servants, and they remained in the house of Joseph. Joseph then built for himself a very magnificent house, like unto the house of kings, before the court of the king's palace. And he made in the house a large temple, very elegant in appearance and convenient for his residence. 3 years was Joseph in erecting his house. So it took him 3 years to get the house together like he wanted to get it. And Joseph made unto himself a very elegant throne of abundance of gold and silver, and he covered it with onyx stones and bdellium. Now, in the New Jerusalem, the Lord's apostles and whatnot will sit upon thrones. So that is scripture. All right. So he made himself a very elegant throne of abundance of gold and silver, and he covered it with onyx stones and bdellium, and he made upon it the likeness of the whole land of Egypt and the likeness of the river of Egypt that watereth the whole land of Egypt. And Joseph sat securely upon his throne in his house, and the Lord increased Joseph's wisdom. See, Joseph kept giving his honor and praise to the Lord. He didn't praise himself. He praised the Lord. He didn't get stuck up and say, I got it going on. I'm going to do what I want to do. He wasn't doing that. He was doing work in righteousness in the land. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and Pharaoh's servants and his princes loved Joseph exceedingly, for this thing was from the Lord to Joseph. The Lord did this, sent Joseph ahead of his brethren so that the earth would be saved alive, right? And Joseph had an army that made war, going out in hosts and troops to the number of 40,600 men, capable of bearing arms to assist the king and Joseph against the enemy. So Joseph was also trained in combat and battle, how to, get rid of the enemy against the land that you're in, right? Okay, besides the king's officers and his servants and the inhabitants of Egypt without number. And Joseph gave unto his mighty men and to all his host shields and javelins and caps and coats of mail and stones for slinging. So I'm going to stop there for today, but next week we'll go on to the next part, okay? And we're going to see the greatness of Joseph in the land. If you read some of the books today, it tells you Joseph also became a physician. So a lot of the different things that they tell us today as far as medicine came from Joseph. They don't want to admit it because why? To people today, none of that stuff should have came from people of color, but it did. It came from a black Hebrew Israelite. Okay, and they try to lie about it and stuff like that, just like they lie about electricity. We knew electricity before we got to this land. Okay, that electricity and stuff came over there. We knew it through Egypt, because every time stuff happened with our people, we ran to Egypt and different places surrounding for cover. They had Egypt had electricity a long time ago. Don't believe the hype about I think they said Benjamin Franklin or something like that. No, we knew electricity way before we got here. The much as they say that we are savage people or whatever, no, we weren't savage, before we got here. If anything, we became savage being here, dragged here, okay, in shackles and stuff like that, and made to live a lesser life. Okay, but no, we even before Joseph, okay, we had, you know, come on, Abraham and them, they were rich people. Joseph comes from that line of Abraham. So no, don't believe that nonsense. All right, so thank you all for tuning in again to the Crystal Jones Show. It is the show that's all about life's balance. I try to bring you the balance of what happened then and what's going on now. They went through the famine then, we're going through the famine now. So y'all stock up, stock up. My stuff is growing. I've been, cultivating out there on the terrace, and I got stuff coming and growing. So y'all stock up, stock up, stock up as much as you can, because we're in the midst of a famine that's coming on the land. So we're going to have our years of plenty, and then it's going to get even worse. So continue to stock up. Don't be afraid to, watch some of the videos that are online that show you how to stock up. If you have questions and whatnot, ask, you know, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be ashamed. We can work together so that when that time comes, we can help one another, because there's not going to be any money. As much as they talk about all this currency, that stuff is going to come to an end, and we're going to have to be bartering. Okay. So don't be fooled by the hype and all of these different things that they show you and tell you. The end is very near, because we can't continue to live like this. This world as we know it has got to come to an end so that Christ's kingdom can come into fruition. He's not going to be sending vote for me under your door and all of that kind of stuff. He ain't going to be knocking on your door saying, "Hi, I'm Christ. Can you vote for me in the primaries?" It ain't going to be that. He's going to come in and he's going to take over. He's going to move things out of the way. God bless you. God keep you is my prayer. Watch me on YouTube. Join my YouTube channel. Watch me every Saturday, channel 951-2137 on the cable channel on bronxnet.org. Also go to Instagram. Check me out there. Watch the inspirational Bible scriptures and videos. Like and share me on YouTube. Join my channel. Okay. Instagram, like I said, go there. Look at the Bible scriptures daily in HebrewConnect.tv. Check me out there. All right. So, Kwam Yasharala Kwam, all 12 tribes, come on, y'all, get to work. Let's tell people who we are and how God is going to gather the nations together. All right. So God bless you. God keep you is my prayer. And I always tell you, and you stay balanced.
Stop using church intimidation, control and manipulation. Jezebel and all them spirits fall back, not trying to hear it. Go with Jesus, walk in peace. On your pew can sit that beast that we're fighting in the world. I'm that JC Supergirl, Jesus Christ, belt of truth, arm of God, I'm slaying you. Power of the word, two-edged sword. MC Heaven rocks for her Lord. Thought they crept in unaware, didn't see the gatekeeper standing right there. Not getting down with your tactics, undoctrinal practice.